Meine Herren, ich eröffne die Sitzung.
Hi, I'd like to give you a brief overview of our restoration of M. Fritz Lang's M demanded a special approach to this restoration on a level with the quality of the film. I should first explain that restoration really begins with the film itself. In other words, film historians painstakingly piece together all the best film elements collected from sources around the world that best represent the originally released version. From this point, any number of processes occur that result in creation of a final master, film positive or negative, together with all its warts and blemishes, and it's from here that we begin. Most viewers rarely have an opportunity to witness the original condition of old films prior to the restoration, unless of course they compare them with early VHS versions, as you can see here. Therefore they never really get to appreciate the level of painstaking effort that goes into a quality restoration of this magnitude. Now, although numerous technologies exist in the market that perform so-called clean-up operations, our experience shows that they're unreliable. They can remove areas of an image that must be retained or induce unwanted artifacts, and even reduce overall picture detail due to frame averaging processes. Consequently, we elected to combine a number of processes heavily dressed with a major dose of good old-fashioned retouching skill. What we have on the system at the moment has actually undergone partial clean-up restoration to get to this stage before we handwork a lot more. We have done some automation and also manually calibrated some of those other technical processes, but when we get to stages like this, it's better to have cleaned up certain of the fundamentals so that we can get back to the high degree of detailed handwork that we have to put into a lot of this. I've got an example of one of the frames. As you can see, the amount of degradation that's showing up in these areas. Of course, when we work into the facial features that are missing up here, we have to do quite a lot of work, rather I have to do quite a lot of work going back to reconstitute those elements that are missing. And when you take these over 25 frames per second, we could be here for years. Fortunately, we have a little bit of experience doing it. And a little closer there, you can see that it's quite a substantial loss in this area. And so to get back in there and paint all the details and whiskers and other various elements is quite laborious and painstaking, particularly when you have to match back frames in continuous motion without them shifting all over the place. In this area, we can see shots that have a number of instances of tears showing up in these sections and creases, quite substantial, particularly when you see them over a number of frames. I've elected to show a static frame here because it shows the detail a little bit more rather than in motion. You can see the tear as it goes through in this area, and it does create a little bit of tape jitter. In fact, that's the result there. You can see there's a difference in height even by the repositioning, recalibration of colour and removal of the scarring. Not always every aspect is dealt with. We just go predominantly for the overall appearance. In this instance, you can really see the type of damage that comes through the splices. If I play this through here, you'll see that horrible roll through the splice once again. You can see the jitter that it creates in going through the gate. If we go back to the repaired shot, by comparison, we can see that we've managed to get rid of all of that. I've left in here the little bit of movement because in the rest of the shot it balances itself out. There's a section here where the police were looking for clues in a garden. See all the jumping and motion there. If we look in closer detail, we can see here that the shots all over the place. We've got instances here where you're coming into the frame with that splice aberration, all the scratches that often happen at the top and tail of splices through handling. We've got all these scratches and tears. You can see the whole tear going through here, I hope. The whole thing slides up into frame. And sometimes these sorts of things are actually created at the point of new restoration, where various films from various sources are put together, and through rostrum camera work, the operator decides to slide the frame up to try and get a repositioning to match other segments of the material. But it just doesn't make very much for pleasant viewing, as once more you'll see to play it through. And if you imagine a whole film full of those artefacts, which I can show you in a while, you'll see how unpleasant eventually the overall viewing experience is, irrespective of how much pin-sharp detail, highlighting and black levels are put into these. I'll play that through now. We end up with that. With another 150,000 odd frames confronting me, time was of the essence. You can see numerous areas where, for instance, the shots are actually missing. Here's a shot here where someone decided that when you close the door it's better to get rid of it. Don't know what the objective was there. I guess they needed the door for another set. Another marking up the top there. We decided to put the door back in because it looked better that way. I'm sure that's the way the architect planned it. There we go. Yes, the shots still move around a bit, but not everything can be addressed. It's not that it can't be done, it's once more just simply a case of time, budget, pragmatism. That, along with every other splice in the whole film, just goes to make for further unpleasant viewing, as you can see in these sorts of areas. Let's move that up there. There is quite a lot of detail severely impacted there in terms of the loss of viewing. Scratches, hairs, and once more the approach to that is of course to clean it. There we are. So there's no frames chopped out. If anyone chooses to do a frame count, they'll find that everything is there in all its glory. Oh, it's another one. Oh, look at this. Got splicing and completely missing material. That's not necessarily so hard, but keeping in mind that this is actually moving. And the same on the lead-in shot there. Got half the shot missing. Whilst they're not all that difficult to do, it just furthers the amount of work that's necessary in all of this. There we go. In fact, when we replace him at the top of the shot, we still have to work on creating the continuum of motion that goes up in that shot so that there's no jarring effect that's out of context with the rest of the material. This is a lovely little piece. It's got hairs and dirt, and scratches and all sorts of little fellas through it. Jumps around all over the place, missing at the top of the frame. And it goes to no man's land here. Basically the objective is to try and get a decent transition out of all of this. We felt that this might serve the purpose a little better. Keep in mind once more that we're really only looking at this resolution being shot off a computer screen here, certainly nothing as to what it looks like on the tape itself. Nice little tear. All the staining, it looks like someone put a bit of tape over that tear there to try and hold it together, to hold its integrity. And of course again we've got this, this typical kind of splicing issue up here. Yeah, the shots wobble all over the place now. And there's another little highlight in there. That all these things can be addressed. Many of them have been. But once more, there's just only so much one can really do. So I've left the motion there. Really it was a case of just cleaning up that break. And also following the motion of the splice in order to carry the whole thing through. You find that going in and out of shots, the motion goes right up to that splice, and that was the director's intention, to carry the motion through to that proper editing point. And when people cut that out, it really damages the overall integrity. Here's an example of late light problems. Get a darkening there, brightens there. This doesn't necessarily have a lot of graininess as mentioned, but does highlight the fact that it causes a very big disturbance on the eye when it passes through, as you can see once more. blink. So the best way is to try and readjust those contrasts to deal with it. You can see all the dirt up here. Get a little bit more detail. There's a nice big jump in and edit there. Used to be an old splice. They've just joined up the film. When you're faced with the best part of over 100,000 frames of dirt, it's quite exciting when you come across some clean stuff, believe me. Once again, it's not ultimate perfection. It can be achieved, but you have to work out to what avail. I think in this particular shot, end up with all sorts of little scratches and splices back and forth between the cuts, and because the cuts are so frequent, you're getting all these tape marks. As you can see on each, there's another beautiful one on the splice. Other tape marks here, either side. And consider that every cut in the film wasn't necessarily a cut per shot, but also cuts between other little segments within a shot that might have been done for another take. And the general effect is just a lot of flicking and flashing, and it really disturbs the overall viewing quality. It's the clean version there. I think you'll agree that it's certainly a little more pleasant to look at than the other lot. If you didn't know they existed, you wouldn't know how much work went into these types of things. This little dirty element here, I think, will highlight a lot better the amount of filth in a lot of these scenes. And the necessity to have to address, in this instance, of nearly 450 frames. Have to clean it up. Why don't we just put this thing into a better resolution? And the computer decides to let me. Here we go. So as you can see, makes a big difference. So there's a monumental amount of retouching gone into all of this. Anything from 18 to 20,000 frames, as we mentioned. It's no big deal particularly, but it's frustrating. Here's another example of some messy little bits and pieces. You can see these sorts of things creeping in here where tape and other bits of extraneous damage have gone in, and how much it sort of wobbles around in the shot. Yeah, little frustrating annoyances that just reduce the amount of viewing quality there. So I end up having to stabilise the shot, but it drifts, so it has to match the element that's got to be, that it's going back into, so that the in and out point still coincide with the shift of the frame from edge to edge. I think there may be a little bit of a collection here of some of the garbage. I'm sure, look at that little, that's a fun little bit there. You can see all sorts of bits of damage in that. There we go. Just tape up the side now, look at this. It's wonderful, wonderful material. See the torn in there, old bits of glue or tape, another one there. Oh, lovely stuff. There's another splice, another jump. Sometimes you get these types of things where, when it's been retransferred, sort of squashing effect up here. The tops we have to go through and then recut the shot and then reposition it and make a new one up at the top, making sure that we have the continuance of film grain still flowing smoothly, so that the film grain provides a motion in the shot. I won't bother to jump and show you all the clean up for these things, because you'll see it all in the film anyway. But that's a lovely one, it goes to black. And then there's nothing there, and then we end up with that. Now look at the difference in the, almost there's a kind of a zoom effect as well. Yeah. So we come out of that into that, nothing. We've got to make up a frame, put it in, fix that up, all the dirt that's up the top, and then hopefully continue on like nothing else happened. This one here where a face is completely gone out of focus, you can see that there's motion in that nasty frame that has to be carried through. See what a lovely late light we've got in that one. And then if we boost it in terms of brightness, you can see, well, let's do that, will we? If I raise the gamma of it quite a lot actually. Here you can see the gamma's virtually doubled here now. A little collection of material, some of these areas where you just lose it at the top. Look at this. These are wonderful. It's a little bit of something here for everybody. Other sorts of issues. The dissolve or fade out in here was done via a different process historically. I elected to go back in and clean up the shots and actually readjust the positioning of the pole to do a proper fade out. So I've repositioned the pole back up so it made for a uniform fade out as per, I'm sure, what Fritz Lang intended, but his laboratory let him down. Once more, we've got these sorts of elements of tears and things, dirt. When you attempt to clean up some of these things, you've got, as you can see, hand motion in the shot there. If I put my stylus on that point, you can see the hand moving. So I have to deal with that. Even now you can see the shot dropping down because of that splice. And somewhere in all of that, we've got to find a number of shots to get back into that are relatively clean because it's dirty in every element leading into that particular splice. In one position back here, you can see that if we did the edit about here, I'll put the stylus there, and then it was hacked out and came back in about here, you're going to have a very big jump in the shot, notwithstanding the fact that you've lost so many frames. But that's what's been done in the past. I can assure you none of that's been done here. Once more, all these sorts of splices. Look, the list is endless. This doesn't represent a very big proportion at this stage. You can see the motion in a lot of those. That was quite novel. Just tapping through to that. Now, why that's there, who knows. Any little abnormalities like this just cause that extra bit of displeasure, I suppose, in the overall viewability of the movie. Oh, there's a lovely little piece too where, for some reason, black-headed monster enters frame. Don't know why. So there we have a little bit of an idea of the daunting tasks that are often facing us as we try to create some kind of viewing enjoyment for the general public. Lost the top of the shot up here. Of course we have to put that back in again. Now, I should point out that everything you've seen on this now has already undergone a substantial degree of cleanup. So you can imagine what we actually had to work with prior to this. This in no way reflects on the quality of the initial transfer of film to tape, but the technical processes of the day really do just overemphasize the detail of the aberrations, which makes it that much harder to deal with.
The irony of digital film restoration is that the more you do, the more you do. In other words, when is enough enough? This brings us to audio noise reduction. Early films generally suffer quite substantially from extensive surface noise and other audio artefacts that accumulate over time. These include storage and handling, as well as early recording, mastering and printing processes, and you've probably experienced these audio artefacts before and know how much they affect your viewing enjoyment, even if only subliminally. The myriad software and hardware tools available in the digital realm help us substantially in this regard, but the final result is monitored and measured by the human ear. We work to achieve a practical level of noise reduction in a soundtrack which we believe the general viewing public, such as myself, would be happy to be entertained by, rather than attempting to technically satisfy highly discerning audiophiles, simply because there's no realistic benchmarks. M by its very nature a minimalistic soundtrack, exacerbated noise levels such as hiss, crackles, clicks and pops throughout the film. This may be forgiven by film buffs as a byproduct of age and deterioration, though from a lay point of view, I believe the high level of noise became more of a repetitious distraction, especially in what originally was supposed to be silent segments. To address such issues, we generally extract sample noise prints from audio segments without dialogue, music and effects. We then work with numerous filtering processes to extract or reduce the generically offensive noise base. This serves as a primary audio bed from which to further work on individually offensive segments. Unfortunately, no rule of thumb exists in this process, but heavy-handedness can induce new audio artifacts or weird phasing anomalies. Here's a sample with clicks, crackles, pops, etc. You can hear what a difference it makes. We've found in many instances that a film soundtrack is so heavily embedded with audio noise and artifacts that any noise sample or fingerprint extraction will seriously denigrate the sound quality, sometimes to quite unintelligible levels of dialogue. To refine the approach, we often divide the overall frequency band into smaller subsets and address these with individual noise gates or suppressors. In this case, M had a threshold beyond which any further suppression could cause exponential interference, though this is not to say that further refinement cannot be achieved. So I hope you enjoy the film in its new coat, together with a host of special features on the second disc of the Accent video title.
Wie heißt du denn?
Else Beckmann.